We'll call this meeting of the Alabama Commission on Higher Education to order. I'd like for us to start out by Commissioner Price to lead us in prayer.
Good morning. Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing. As we gather together to do your work, we pray for your guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you clearly show us how to conduct your work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Amen.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Price. Would the commissioners unmute and let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance at this time, if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the
To the
republic
republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
That's always so awkward. I can't wait till we're together to we can do that in person. But so with Zoom, we have a little protocol that we kind of have to do a little house cleaning. But so at this time, I know we've got a lot of representatives on and all the commissioners, but so we are able to hear the presenters. Will everyone just take the time right now and click your mute button from this point forward. If anybody needs to speak up, of course, you can just unmute at that point. And then also going into the protocol, to make this meeting run a little bit smoother so we just don't have all the commissioners chiming in at one time, I've asked for Commissioner Bolden Frost to make the motion to approve an item and Commissioner Nelson to second the motion. So at this time, Dr. Purcell, please call the roll.
Charles Bunton.
Present.
Miranda Bolden Frost.
Present.
Ann Sermon.
Present.
Norman Crow.
Here.
Charles Sanders.
Here.
Timothy Guyan. Paul Kennedy.
Here.
Amy Price.
Here.
Larry Turner. Stan Pylant.
Here.
Stan Nelson.
Present.
Rod Scott. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Present.
Excellent. At this time, the commissioners, just a reminder, if you'll just go ahead and mute on Zoom so we won't have any echoes. But our next item is the approval of the agenda. At this time, the chair entertains a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 And all opposed, like sign. The agenda is approved. Everyone should have had time to review the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, the chair entertains a motion to approve the minutes of the December 11th, 2020 meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 And all opposed, like sign. Minutes are approved. Excellent. Moving into the chairman's report, it's amazing, commissioners, how long a year will fly by. The last time we got together was exactly a year ago when Chairman Sanders had his last in-person meeting, and I will never forget coming into the meeting and Commissioner Stan Pylant was there, and I went to do a fist bump with him, and he came to do an elbow, and we didn't really know if we were supposed to do the fist bump or the elbow. You know, there was just so much unknown at that time, and so it's just it's been a crazy year, but we've weathered the storm, and AIC has done a great job of staying in touch with the universities and the institutions to see what they can do to help them. But hopefully in the summer we will be together. But at this time, the commission would like to recognize Ms. Susan Cagle, who retired February 1st of this year with 34 years of service. I will turn it over to Dr. Purcell, who will read a certificate of appreciation, and then I will call for a vote to adopt it into the minutes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Susan Cagle, 34 years, and this is what the Certificate of Appreciation states. Whereas the state of Alabama is greatly indebted to you for your service to its citizens throughout your work at the Alabama Commission on Higher Education for 34 years, from November 2nd, 1987 to February 1st, 2021. And during your tenure with the commission, you came to be recognized as one of the state's leading authorities on all aspects of the historic Knight v. Alabama higher education desegregation case. And whereas during your tenure with the commission, you were responsible for designing and implementing many legislative mandated activities, including the facility master plan, capital projects request process, multi-million-dollar deferred maintenance grant program, and the collection of information related to higher education facilities used by the state for risk management purposes. And whereas during your tenure with the commission, you participated in and later directed the development of over 30 budget recommendations for higher education and came to be recognized as a leading authority on the Education Trust Fund and the legislative appropriation process. And whereas during your tenure with the commission, you had exhibited exemplary leadership and utmost professionalism, your commitment and dedication to the cause of higher education have enhanced educational opportunities for Alabama citizens. And now therefore be resolved, it is with great pleasure that the members of the Alabama Commission on Higher Education present this certificate to you. We salute you and express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to you for your outstanding leadership and service. Be it further resolved, a copy of this certificate shall be included in the official minutes of the Alabama Commission on Higher Education in Montgomery, Alabama, signed this day, the 12th day of March, 2021.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Purcell. The chair entertains a motion to adopt the resolution as read by Dr. Purcell.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second to approve?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 And all opposed, like sign. Resolution is approved. Ms. Cagle, I don't know if she's on here, but just what an incredible service to the commission for 34 years. That is just incredible. We're just a better commission because of her, and we just appreciate so much her time and efforts throughout the years. Just a reminder for the commissioners to complete the statement of economic interest form. Tim usually sends us out an email, and if you're like me, I'm sure you push it to the side, but it's really, really important that everybody goes on there. The Alabama ethics law requires that certain public officials and employees complete the statement of economic interest form. If you were employed, appointed, elected any time, whether one day or all year during the calendar year of 2020, you must file. The statement of economic interest form is due no later than April 30th. The website link was emailed to everyone, but if you have any questions, you may call Tim Vick and he can resend it out to you. So just make sure next time you get it, or if you got it, just go ahead and do it before you forget about it, because April 30th, of course, is coming like a freight train, and it will be here before we know it. So now I will turn it over to Dr. Purcell for his executive director's report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I also wanted just to show that we did have a retirement party for Susan. Of course, nobody attended because it was all during the pandemic, but we did get her a gift, and we did have her sort of make sure she knew where all our files were so we could sort of do what we need to have done. So we're excited for her future, and we're looking forward to sort of seeing what we can do to replace someone who's been such a valuable part of our office for so many years. In the executive director's report, it'll be rather brief, and then I will be deferring it over to someone else to talk. But I'd first like to welcome Jamarcus White. He's our new employee information specialist. He's fresh out of AUM with a computer information systems major degree. And he worked for us part-time, sort of showed his moxie and his great ability to do technical skills and really some people skills. So very glad to have him to the AIC team. You know, we've been talking a lot about the future of work in America in this office, sharing with the campuses and you all about this. Today, we actually have in our discussion items someone who's actually studied it a good bit, and I'll be asking her to really talk about this idea of what do we do for the future, about how we equip people for the future. And as you recall, one of the charts that I showed a long time ago was that if we don't do this right, if we don't help this transition into automation, we're going to have a big loss of jobs, and we'll have another bubble of unemployment. And of course, some things have happened since then that made this bubble occur anyway. So she'll be talking a little bit about that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd love to go to the discussion items and have Megan Crow speak on that particular topic.
Excellent.
All right, Chairman, Dr. Purcell, and members of the commission, thank you very much for having me here today. My name is Megan Crow. I am currently a senior research and policy analyst at the Southern Education Foundation, but the research that I'll be presenting to you today was when I was a policy analyst at the Southern Regional Education Board. You can advance, Dr. Purcell. So I just want to let you guys know I am going to be running through, I'll try to do it quickly, 2 reports that I had. One was a pre-pandemic sort of economic outlook that I did by state. And the second was a follow-up piece that was looking at how the pandemic has really advanced automation potential. Just so that you know, every slide that you guys will be seeing from me today is Alabama specific. It does couch these issues very much in looking at vulnerability for adults sort of based on their educational attainment levels. So adults with a high school diploma or less, and it relies very heavily on automation projections from McKinsey Global. So you'll see that as we go forward. Next slide, please. All right, so again, this is pre-pandemic, and what we found was there were about 1.9 billion workers in the state that were going to be affected by automation. Now, we say most just because there might be 1 or 2 people who don't get affected by automation, but pretty much everybody is going to be affected in some way. And again, looking at those adults with educational attainment levels below a college level, even having some college or an associate's degree, what we found was that there were about 740,000 adults in the state who were likely to be unemployable by 2030. And that's not unemployed, that's potentially unemployable. And then the impacts that that would have for their children, who are also very likely to have some of the same outcomes. We can go forward. So what we're looking at here is automation potential in the state. Now, when we talk about automation potential, typically we're not going to see entire jobs going away. What we're going to see is a percentage of activities that will be automated. So in the state of Alabama, between the time period from 2014 to 2030, estimates found that about 45% of all work activities could be automated. And I've shared for you here the top 5 industries and their automation potential in each one of those industries. And I chose those industries based on which ones had the most people working in them. So in Alabama, these 5 industries have the most people working in them. And what you will see is that the automation potential in some of them is very high, especially like if you look at the production. So 85% of current production activities, or current at 2014 time, were automatable over that 15-year period. You can go to the next slide. All right, so again, when we're talking about vulnerability, we're looking at those adults that have a high school diploma or less. You'll see this first number here, the 37%, that's sort of today's parents. So 25 to 44-year-olds, about 37% of them in the state have a high school diploma or less. The next number that you see, the 36%, were below basic. So these are actually, they were 8th graders at that time. So these are going to be graduating students in the next couple of years. And what this below basic number means is that basically 36% of them were not at even a grade level, like reading level. They were below basic. They're not likely to go to college. They might graduate from high school. They might not. But what's interesting is that you'll see the parents here who had a high school diploma or less, that percentage is about the same as those who are underachieving in reading. And what we found, or what is found in research, is that children who were born to low-skilled parents with those low educational attainment levels are 10 times as likely to have the same outcomes themselves in their adulthood. Next slide, please. So what you see here is actual job displacement. So if you'll notice, in the state of Alabama, Alabama actually has a really high projections for job displacement. So this isn't just activities now, this is actual jobs that they're saying. So as you'll see in some counties, there are more than 25% of jobs could be displaced by advancing automation. And again, this was over a previous 15-year period. Next slide, please. And so what we find is with this automation advancing and parents who have low attainment who then aren't able to support their children, they become unemployed. It's just a multi-generational cycle. So it's not just about treating kids at the K-12 level. It's not just about getting people into post-secondary. It's also about those adult skills too. And residents of rural communities are the ones that are going to have the greatest impact. Next slide, please. Okay, so then the pandemic happened, and what McKinsey found was that automation advanced by about 5 years within an early 8 weeks in the pandemic. So I took the remaining 10 years of time from 2020 to 2030, and I condensed them into 5. And what that meant was that about 30% of the activities could be automated now by 2025 instead of that 2030 landmark. So when we're looking here at like production occupations, keep in mind, some of this automation already happened in the previous 5, now 6 years, but in production occupations, about 57% of activities are automated. So if you think about the automobile industry in Alabama, I'll tell you, there's a couple countries that are already testing flying automobiles, and flying taxis. So I just want to make you guys think for just a second about converging technologies, because this is really important. When we're planning what skills adults are going to need in the future, we're not entirely sure, because what happens is as technology advances, it gets smarter and it gets smaller, and then we're able to bring them together. So think about your internet, your mail, your calculator, your computer that when I was a little girl used to be the size of a room, and now we're walking around with cell phones. So cell phones are a great example of how we brought together a whole bunch of different technologies, made them small, made them portable, and now this has totally transformed the way that we can shop, the way we communicate, the way that we plan our lives. And what we're going to see in the next couple of years is that's going to happen again. And, futurists are talking about, we're not exactly sure how it's going to happen, because it kind of depends on how existing technologies that we already have are going to be combined. So just something to think about there. All right. And then again, those adults that are most vulnerable to automation were also at the greatest risk for pandemic interruptions. Those with the lowest level of education, women and people of color, and then those that are the youngest and the oldest workers. And we'll see that a large percentage of workers in the state are considered essential. A large percentage can work from home. And that leaves about 50% of the workforce that are at risk for unemployment, reduced work hours, or other types of economic impacts. Next slide, please. And so I thought it was important to go look and see of the actual people who were working, how vulnerable were our workers. So this isn't just adults in the state that have a high school diploma or less. This was the actual active employees in May 2019. And what I found was that 67% of the active workers in the state a year ago had a high school diploma or less. So all of those people are vulnerable to advancing technologies, and they are either going to be out of work or they are going to be stuck in low-wage jobs and unable to give their children the support that they need to be successful in the future. Next slide. And again, so this is just vulnerability by different industry here. So you can see like food prep and serving, obviously 100% of those people are vulnerable with pandemic shutdowns, ongoing health restrictions. So these might not be people that lose their job, but they might have reduced hours. So when we're talking about getting people into school and raising those skills, there's a large majority of our people that might be able to keep their jobs, but they might have reduced hours, further, lessening the resources that they have to do the things they need to. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to just run through a little slide here. This is net job gains and losses over a period of time. Can we start there we go. So you can see there's a recession there. We have some jobs coming back. And then you'll see once we get to the end here, there's going to be a huge explosion of job loss, which I think is not going to surprise anybody. All right, and what's really important about this, and you can move to the next slide, is the federal unemployment rate doesn't necessarily count people who have dropped out of the labor force. So it includes people who are in the labor force or people who are remaining in it and that they are continuing to look for jobs. This bottom red line is like that official unemployment rate that we're seeing, and the blue line indicates that there are significantly more people who dropped out of the labor force or who are not calculated. It's not inappropriately, it's just that the federal rate wasn't designed for a pandemic. It wasn't designed to capture all the people who were affected in this type of an instance. So there are many more people that have lost their jobs or lost hours than we're counting in those official rates. Next slide, please. So there's a real sense of urgency to get people to upskill. The jobs that are being displaced are going to require a higher level of educational attainment overall than the ones that were there prior. And a lot of these jobs that went away, they're not coming back. They've been fully automated, or businesses are having to pare down to, afford and plan for what the next couple of years might look like. So really important that we're looking at reskilling our current adult workers. And then you'll see, if you can click and open up the words on the bottom here. So Alabama has seen a higher increase in net tuition, which is tuition paid minus the financial aid. They've seen a much higher increase than the US overall. Next slide. But if you'll see, Alabama's cost is actually, it's in the middle of the pack for public two-year colleges. But what I want to draw your attention to is what the slide is saying. And it's saying that about 15% of the average family's income is needed to pay for a two-year college. That's not low income people. So if we'll go to the next slide. So now for your median family, now we're up to about 33% of a family's income that's needed to pay for type 2 regional universities. If we go to the next slide, now we're up to, what is that? 46% of a family's average income before taxes is what they need to pay for a high research university. And again, this is the median income. So when we're talking about low income families, these numbers get much higher. They get to like 65 or 70% of a family's income that's needed to afford going to school. I don't know about you, but I can't afford to spend 70% of my income for my kid to go to school. So next. All right, so this is some new data, and just what we're seeing is that enrollment is going down, and it's expected to stay down as the pandemic has advanced. And of course, the students who were the least likely to go to college in the first place are now the ones who are being more impacted. Low income, first generation, English speaking students, rural students, students who are probably or were working to help support their families. These are the ones who are less likely to go, and we need more students going. So there's a real, urgency to address these enrollment and completion numbers. And then again, this is just, required median tuition at public institution for families making $30,000 or less. So like I said, you'll see at a four-year institution, the percentage of a family's income needed increase from 48% to 61% over a 5-year period. There we go. And so we really need to think about, as technology advances, if we want to stay competitive with other states and with the world, we are going to have to raise the educational attainment levels of the people in our states. And does having, such a high, entrance requirement, if you will, here for families, is that really accomplishing that goal? Next slide, please. So just, thinking about affordability is going to be a huge thing, making sure that the state is investing in need-based aid and that we're getting more students into school. Also, micro-credentialing is a big hot topic, and making sure that those lines aren't just linear, because, we're going to have to change this kind of lifelong learning idea and figure out how to keep people coming in and out of the workforce. College isn't just going to be, you go 4 or 6 years and then you're done. It's not like back in the Sputnik era when you could get a high school diploma and get a job for 30 years and support your family. Now we're going to have to figure out, people are going to have to kind of be raising their skills all the time. And so thinking about how we do that and what college looks like in the future, and then making sure that what we're training for is really well aligned to those workforce needs. Does anybody have any questions for me at this point? Okay, well, you guys will see here, Dr. Jeff Gagne was my director at SRAB, and he is available if you have any further questions, or you can reach out to me at the Southern Education Foundation, and my information is there. And thank you again for having me.
Excuse me, Megan, I didn't know that was the end of the presentation. This is Rod Scott, and I sit on the Southern Region Education Board. I want to thank you for a phenomenal job that you've done, but you've given us a lot to think about. And it's almost overwhelming from the standpoint of the work that we need to do within Alabama to bring people up to speed. Has there been any work done on the economic impact with the introduction of this new technology? And when I say economic impact, I'm really meaning the impact on gross state product within the.
So this is what I'll say. That is a question that we definitely get asked frequently. And I think that it is an area of opportunity for states. You know, when students move from high school into college, we don't always track them really well. And so we miss data there. And then when they go from college beyond into the workforce, we don't really always track them well there. So it's really hard for us to establish return on investment. What there is more of an availability is the cost of GDP when you don't. So there's a lot of studies on, you know, women dropping out of the workforce and what that means for the current GDP and where that sets states. There is economic pieces that look at if you have lots of people with low educational attainment, what that means for your GDP. And also if you think about, you know, these people who are losing jobs, who can't step into another one, or will have health issues, or, you know, can't work because of other health restrictions in their area, they're also heavily reliant on state services. I'm pretty, you know, I think in the long run, it would cost a lot less to teach a person than it would to support them because we didn't. So I don't have good data at this time to point you specifically, but return on investment, I think, is an opportunity for states to measure. And I think that it's a good opportunity to be talking more with industry to make sure that we're really meeting their needs, but that they're giving us good feedback about how we're doing, and that the credentials are properly communicating what those skill sets are, that the businesses are properly communicating what they need. And I know Alabama has a lot of efforts working on that. So those are really critical. Did that answer your question, Representative Scott?
Yes, it does. But of course, it leads to another question, and this deals with when we start talking about college affordability and the four-year colleges and where we stand in Alabama in terms of that college affordability. Are there any states that are working on programs that could make it more affordable for people, whether they're low income or whether they're upper income, to go on to college?
So my research has been more broad, and there were other groups that looked specifically at some of those policy areas. But I will say what's really, you know, the best efforts is just increasing those need-based scholarships and making sure that the financial support that we're providing to students is actually getting to the ones that need them. I will also say a big component of that is providing additional school counselors to ensure that students are filling out the FAFSA and make sure that they are checking their eligibility for federal Pell Grants. We've seen a big decline in FAFSA completion, and, you know, of course, that's leading to other things, but just making sure that students have the support that they need to figure out how to get into school, because a lot of, you know, navigating getting into a university for a first-generation student, or a student who's, you know, maybe English wasn't their first language, or a student with disabilities, that they need additional supports to make that transition. And so states that are putting some effort there are seeing more students able to continue on with their education and then complete college.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much for having me. I hope that this was helpful, and please feel free to reach out if any further questions do come up.
And there has been some requests about copies for Megan's PowerPoint. We do post the PowerPoint for the board meeting soon after the board. So you go to ake.edu, look at about, and it'll say board meetings, and you'll be able to get a copy. And Mr. Chairman, I'll send it back to you for introduction for the next item.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Purcell. And thank you, Ms. Crow. What an enlightening report, and your research is just amazing. The next discussion item, Dr. McGill will present credential registry, competency frameworks, and in-demand occupations.
Great, thank you, Chairman, and good morning, commissioners and visitors on the call. I'm pleased to give you all an update on Alabama's credential registry. I've talked about this before, so this is a little bit of a refresher here on this slide. Some of our institutions have already been participating by submitting credentials through the portal that AIC has put up, which just allows us to gather some information about those credentials that is not public, well, is publicly accessible, but isn't easily grabbable in one place. So, you know, what's the website of the credential? What's the description and those sort of things. And the idea here is to build a database that can interface with the national registry, which is maintained by Credential Engine through a tool called Credential Finder. And ultimately to use that information to help us better align some of our workforce and education systems. And if you all will advance the slide here. So this is kind of a little bit of an overwhelming diagram because there's so much going on. But Credential Engine recently put this together, and I just want to kind of focus your attention down at the bottom on those 4 user types where you see the credential providers, employers, learners and workers, and then policymakers. And Alabama has really come at this work from those middle 2 user types, the employers who are, you know, we hear about the skills gap and we hear that employers are having trouble finding employees that match their skills. And so having a transparent system around what credentials are and what skills they offer can help those employers connect with the employees who are that second user, the learners and workers. So people who are being trained, who are going through our higher ed and post-secondary ed systems, but may need those additional credentials to upskill and get to their next job. Or as we have often heard and just heard from Ms. Crow, this kind of lifelong learner who needs to go in and out of the education and workforce system. So this is a quick snapshot of that national database that Credential Engine puts together called Credential Finder. And if you go to the next slide, I want to show you, we've made some progress here in Alabama. So the last time I gave this presentation, there were no credentials in the database from Alabama. And now we've got 98, and we've got also 1,600 from the community colleges that are going in this week. Just the next slide gives you a quick snap of what one of these credentials looks like. This one you can probably see at the top in small writing is from the Alabama Office of Apprenticeship. There's a quick description of this computer systems analyst apprenticeship and what occupations it aligns with, what industry it goes to, and then what instructional programs. That's our CIP code. But you also see that there is a lot of white space on this page down there on the right. And the hope is that over the coming 6 months or even a year, that we as a state are going to be developing a system for competencies and skills so that we can articulate those in a coherent and comparable way so that we could show how this particular apprenticeship certificate has competencies that might be of value to an employer or allow a potential enrollee or participant to compare this program with other similar programs in the marketplace or not so similar programs in the marketplace. Here's one that's probably more familiar to us, is a bachelor's degree program from our partners at University of Alabama. And there's, you know, a similar description, occupations, industries, and likewise, there is a lot of space on here for us to work with them around competency frameworks, which I've, you know, talked in a couple of places are going to be hopefully similar to those learning outcomes that are already associated with our degrees. And so we'll be engaging with you all in a kind of translation activity. And we'll, of course, want to draw on your expertise from your institutional effectiveness offices to make sure that whatever system we develop as a state is responsive to the needs of our 2- and 4-year institutions. So next steps, the credential registry is still going to be managed by AIC, but we're moving to a new web address, which is not live yet. So if you search for it, nothing will be there, but it will be credentials.alabama.gov, hopefully by the end of the month. You've heard us talk about the Alabama Committee on Credentialing and Career Pathways before. That's the ACCC. There are 16 technical advisory committees that are organized by career cluster, and those committees are going to be meeting over the next several months to review the credentials that are associated with their cluster. So those are the ones that our 2- and 4-year and external partners have been submitting through the registry. And so one piece of this work is sending information to Credential Finder, but another piece is evaluating those credentials for the match to our state's in-demand occupation list, which will allow us to produce the compendium of valuable credentials. All right, and here's a quick snapshot of one section of the in-demand occupation list. It's about 7 or 8 pages long. It includes 232 in-demand occupations for this year. And it was developed by our partners at the Alabama Department of Labor using the rubrics that the ACCC had established. So we do have the full list on our website for your ease. You can also find it on the Alabama Department of Labor's website. And if anybody wants to see it over there, and the methodology that they used is kind of fully spelled out over there, I'm happy to point you in that direction. But on our website, it's under instruction and then policies and guidance. And we wanted to draw your attention to it as a tool in developing new programs, because this is now how we are here in the AIC staff office reviewing that section on industry need. We are using this list instead of, going to do a lot of our own research on labor market information. We trust our colleagues with the ACCC to help us with this list. And I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. McGill. Great presentation. Next, Mrs. Gunter will present the latest legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lawmakers came back to Montgomery last month to begin the 2021 session. Since that time, they have been meeting 3 legislative days each week until this week, when they return to a Tuesday-Thursday meeting schedule. Wednesdays are reserved for committee meetings. They will meet 2 days next week before taking spring break the week of March 22nd. They have until May 17th when the regular session winds down. This morning, I would like to bring you up to date on some bills that directly pertain to AIC and our work here. First, I would like to welcome our official new commissioners. On March 4th, the full Senate confirmed Norman Crow from Tuscaloosa, Paul Kennedy of Jasper, and Ann Sermon from Mobile, for each to serve a 9-year term on the commission. Chairman Button has made committee assignments, with Commissioner Kennedy appointed to the Academic Affairs and Commissioners Crow and Sermon as members of Financial Affairs. On the next slide, you will see Let's Talk Money. When lawmakers return next Tuesday, the education budget will be up in the Senate Finance and Taxation Education Committee. Speaking to the Council of Presidents this week, State Finance Director Kelly Butler said this year's February 1st deadline to certify state revenue sources faced uncertainty based on the impact of COVID on incoming state revenues. The governor's budget that was sent to lawmakers last month called for an approximate 7% increase over last year for 4-year institutions and a 9.5% increase for the Alabama Community College system. Using the governor's budget as a base, the 2022 education budget is projected to be roughly $7.65 billion, which does reflect a $440 million increase over last year. On the next slide, we'll see some sets of bills that address financial aid programs administered by AIC. If legislation is passed, there will be eligibility changes in these programs. The first is HB 424. It involves the Alabama Student Grant Program. This provides financial aid to an Alabama student attending an approved accredited independent college or university in the state. Currently, student awards are capped at $1,200 per academic year. This bill would raise the cap to $3,000 per academic year. It has passed out of the House Ways and Means Committee. And in the next slide, SB 216 is the ANGAP bill, or the Alabama National Guard Education Assistance Program. It was on the Senate Finance and Taxation Committee agenda this past week, but it was carried over at the request of the sponsor. This bill does have several tuition elements, extending tuition reimbursement for duly or concurrently enrolled high school and college students, reimbursing tuition based on the actual cost as opposed to the average tuition rate of public universities, and setting the cap for private college tuition reimbursement at the rate of the public institution with the highest tuition and instructional fee rates. The legislation also makes ANGAP the first payer instead of the last payer after all of the revenue sources have been factored in. And short and long certificates and associate degrees are considered stackable undergraduate credentials. They may be used to obtain a baccalaureate degree, making it the first degree. And the next slide, the next two bills that we will be looking at are on the House Ways and Means Committee agenda for next Wednesday. HB 153 addresses dependent eligibility in the Police Officer and Firefighter Survivor Educational Assistance Program. The changes would include allowing a dependent natural child under 21 years of age born after the death of the police officer or firefighter, or a dependent child under 21 who was adopted after total disability was declared to be eligible for a scholarship. And in the next slide, HB 175, AMSTEP, some changes are aimed at allowing more math and science teachers to participate in the loan forgiveness program. As you all know, Alabama continues to face a teacher shortage in these STEM subjects. At this time, only public high school teachers are eligible for the AMSTEP funds. This bill would broaden the eligibility requirements to include middle-level school teachers, teachers who live out of state but teach in Alabama, and it would reduce the STEM teaching load from full-time to 3/4. Another add-on would be individuals issue the Alabama Bachelor's Level Professional Educator Certificate in Math, Science, or Computer Science upon completion of the Alternative Certification Program. The next slide, HB 498. It has been given a name, establishing the Alabama Workforce Council Committee on Credential Quality and Transparency. It is on next week's House Special Order calendar for a vote in the House, and it would establish the database known as the Alabama Credential Registry that would be managed and maintained by AIC. It would provide access for students, job seekers, and employers to learn about credentials and competencies related to education and workforce programs. And in the next slide, a House committee held a public hearing this week to hear from citizens both for and against SB 46, which is the medical marijuana bill. Senate sponsor Tim Melson told committee members that the legislation allows for 17 conditions that would be addressed after other pain remedies have been exhausted. The bill establishes a consortium for medical cannabis research with the purpose of awarding grants to entities for research relating to cannabis and medical cannabis. The initial member institutions will consist of both public and private four-year institutions in the state. AIC's role to tap appointees no later than January 1st, 2022 to the consortium. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report for the first half of the 2021 legislative session.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Margaret? Great report, as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So at this time, we're going to move into the decision items. As y'all all know, each decision item will be voted on individually. Any questions may be directed to the staff presenter. And commissioners, you know, the great due diligence that the staff does here in getting each decision item thoroughly inspected and making decisions to present to us. But by all means, if you have any questions, please stop before we vote if you have any questions. So our first decision item will be an academic program. It will be presented by Dr. McGill, Auburn University Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis.
Okay, greetings, everyone. This Master of Science program proposed by Auburn University is already is related to an existing program in their MS in General Psychology. It will elevate one concentration to a full major. And based on the enrollment in that existing concentration, Auburn feels very confident that they will have enough student demand to meet full viability. They do want that standalone program to go through specialized accreditation, and having it as a separate program will certainly support that process. The graduates from this program, as in the existing concentration, will be able to sit for Board Certified Behavior Analyst Certification, BCBA, which is required for licensure to practice as a behavioral analyst in the state of Alabama. So far, Auburn's graduates have had well over a 90% first-time pass rate on that exam, so it's a very high-performing program. There are no new expenses or faculty, and it prepares the program will prepare graduates for in-demand occupations as behavioral counselors and school psychologists, which are both on that list of in-demand occupations. Staff is recommending approval for this program.
Excellent. Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments at this time? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The second program for Auburn will be presented by Dr. McGill, Master of Development Practice in Development Practice. That sounds interesting.
Yes, and just to clarify, Chairman and Commissioners, in this case, development practice is referring to developing sustainable solutions to major global issues around hunger, poverty, and other social issues, not to be confused with development in terms of fundraising. The program is related to an existing offering at Auburn at the baccalaureate level in global studies in human sciences, and this would extend that program to the master's level. It is already a highly enrolled program, and so Auburn is confident that they will be able to meet their enrollment numbers. Given their existing faculty, there will not be any new expenditures, and the MDP program will be the only one of its kind in the state. It differs from some programs that are existing in the region because it has a focus on those human sciences, which are related to in the neighborhood of social work and human development and those fields. The jobs for graduates from this program would be in international organizations or non-governmental organizations as social and community service managers or management analysts, and both of those are on our in-demand occupations list. Graduates or program enrollees also have to do a practical experience in an international setting, so a kind of field placement that will make them ready to step into those occupations. Staff is recommending approval for this program.
Great. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The third program for Auburn will be presented by Dr. McGill, Master of Science in Supply Chain Management.
Great, thank you, Chairman. This proposed program from Auburn University is related to an existing graduate certificate that they currently offer. It's a 12-hour, I guess, 4-course graduate degree that they are proposing to expand into a full master's degree program. There are currently 2 similar programs in the state, one at Athens State and one at UAH. And there's also some course overlap with an operations management master's program at the University of Alabama. But needless to say, this is a growing industry in our state around logistics and supply chain management. In terms of the occupations that graduates would be prepared for, we're looking at logisticians and transportation, storage, and distribution managers, which are both on our high demand occupations list and combined have nearly 500 annual openings. So there is plenty of room for production of additional graduates. This program will not require any new funds because of the existing faculty resources that Auburn has, and staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Our next program will be presented by Dr. McGill, Troy University, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and Data Analytics.
Thank you, Chairman. This proposal from Troy University is planning to take one of the concentrations from Troy's BSBA in Global Business and elevate that to a standalone degree program. So that's one of the reasons that we are putting an additional, or we are recommending a post-implementation condition for continued viability for the Global Business program, which shouldn't be a problem because obviously that program enrolls hundreds of students per year. But the new program obviously will need to have its own viability. It will not require any new resources or any new coursework. It's going to be grounded in College of Business offerings. There are similar programs at Auburn and at the University of Alabama, but given the growth in data analytics as a 21st century occupation, there is certainly sufficient demand. The program is intended to prepare graduates for occupations as management analysts, operations research analysts, and market research analysts. 2 out of the 3 of those are on our in-demand occupations list, with nearly 1,300 occupations open or positions opening annually. So quite a lot of demand here. Staff is recommending approval for this program.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Our next program will be presented by Dr. McGill, University of South Alabama, Doctor of Philosophy in Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. It's a mouthful.
I assume that means the graduates will be very well prepared. So this program, Chairman, is a unique interdisciplinary PhD in engineering. There is currently one interdisciplinary PhD in engineering that's offered at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, but this one is different insofar as it kind of has a core in chemical engineering, and it keeps its focus on biomolecular applications. So we're talking about, very small in terms of its scale of research. And it is a partnership of the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Engineering, the College of Medicine, and also its some research units that are not degree offering. And therefore, it will be able to offer 4 concentrations within this PhD, or tracks, I should say. The tracks are chemical engineering, environmental toxicology, medicinal chemistry, and applied chemistry, biochemistry. The program is intended to prepare graduates for careers in chemical and environmental engineering and related fields, and certainly aligns with growth in the Gulf area and also the strengths of the University of South Alabama. There will be some additional costs for faculty as a program director and assistantships to attract competitive students. But USA is expecting those to be offset by internal and external grant funds to support students through research. And staff is recommending approval for this program.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Our second program for the University of South Alabama will be presented by Dr. McGill. Establishment of a new unit of instruction, School of Marine and Environmental Sciences.
Right, thank you, Chairman. The University of South Alabama is proposing to develop a new unit of instruction, and we don't often get these at the commission. Many times changes at the department level or changes of administrative or research units just come as information items for notification. But in creating an entire new unit of instruction that will have sub-departments and will reorganize existing degrees and fields, then our regulations ask for commission approval. This new unit of instruction for the School of Marine and Environmental Sciences will include University of South Alabama's Department of Marine Sciences, a couple of interdisciplinary programs, and then obviously will be a home for program growth for the University of South Alabama, in keeping with their strengths in marine, coastal, and environmental studies. The institution is expecting an additional investment on their part of $50,000 per year to sustain the new unit of instruction and grow it, hopefully to attract additional grants, research fundings, which will offset and provide return on investment for this new school. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 All opposed, like sign. The establishment of a new unit of instruction is approved. Our next program will be presented by Ms. Kristen White, Shelton State Community College, Associate of Applied Science and Medical Laboratory Technician.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Shelton State Community College will implement this proposed degree in medical laboratory technician in the fall of 21. The program will prepare graduates for employment as clinical laboratory technicians, which are included on the 2021 statewide in-demand occupations list. Creation of this program came about through discussions with local healthcare business and industry partners who expressed a need for more MLTs to address persistent vacancies and anticipated future vacancies. And the proposal does include 6 letters of support from these local partners. A little over $1 million in new funds will be required to support the program over the first 7 years. This will cover additional faculty, new equipment, and specialized accreditation costs. The community college system has already approved Shelton's proposed redirection of funds for the program based on the demonstrated industry need for graduates. Staff is recommending approval for this program.
Thank you, Ms. White. Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Nelson?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Thank you. Our next program will be presented by Dr. McGill, University of North Alabama, Bachelor of Business Administration in Data Analytics.
All right, thank you, Chairman. This program from the University of North Alabama is similar in scope to what was approved just earlier for Troy University. Like the Troy program, it is offered through the business school at the University of North Alabama, and is grounded in a kind of business core with data analytics coursework. The University of North Alabama already offers undergraduate coursework in quantitative methods, and this would grow that coursework into a full major. It also is planning to use faculty and resources from the existing program in economics, which the university is intending to sunset. Those economics faculty already teach in the quantitative methods minor. And because of this existing resource, they will not require any additional investments to offer this degree. In terms of its occupational outcomes, it's similar to what we saw with the Troy program for management analysts and market specialists. And there is certainly quite a demand for folks who are trained in data analytics. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. The second program for the University of North Alabama will be presented by Dr. McGill, Master of Science in Instructional Technology and Design.
Thank you, Chairman. This Master of Science in Instructional Technology and Design grows out of UNA's existing graduate certificate and micro-credential of the same, of a similar name, and they are looking to grow it into a full degree program. They do need to add some additional coursework, which you can see from that curriculum map that is provided as part of the documentation. This program is offered within the School of Education. It is not intended to lead to certification with the Alabama State Department of Education, which if you look at similar programs that are offered at institutions throughout Alabama, there are half of them that lead to certification and half of them don't. So it is not necessarily unique in not leading to certification. The proposal has been accompanied by a number of employer letters saying that they would welcome this graduates of such a program. University of North Alabama intends there to be 2 tracks, one for and leading to instructional coordinators position who might be embedded in K-12 or higher ed settings, and the second for training and development specialists who would be ideally embedded within corporate or other private sector entities looking to train employees. Both of those occupations associated with those tracks appear on the in-demand occupations list with nearly 500 openings combined. Given that demand, staff is recommending approval for this program.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Our next program will be presented by Dr. McGill, Athens State University, Bachelor of Science in Education in Elementary Education and English for Speakers of Other Languages.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's quite a mouthful. That is in part because it leads to, this degree is designed to lead to dual certification through the Alabama State Department of Education. So by dual certification, meaning one, graduates will be certified to teach as elementary education educators and also as K-6 instructors for English for speakers of other languages. And requirements for both have been included in the curriculum. I should also note, which was pointed out by some of our institutional reviewers, that there is currently not a set of standards that ALSDE has at the baccalaureate level for ESOL. And so this program is designed as an innovative set of standards. So if this implementation goes well, ALSDE may in the future entertain more programs at the baccalaureate level that lead to ESOL certification. Currently, that is only available for master's level educators. Part of the reason they're opening it up for baccalaureate is because of the very high demand for educators who have the training in ESOL. Athens State already has some coursework, I think associated with a minor in ESOL, and they will generate some new courses to fill out the rest of the curriculum to lead to that innovative certification. There are a number of letters of support, and we have confirmed with ALSDE that they have already, been aware of this program and are looking forward to receiving the proposal. With that, staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. Chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. The program is approved. Our second program for Athens will be presented by Dr. McGill. Master of Science in Strategic Human Resource Management.
Great, thank you, Chairman. As you can see from the slide, Athens State University already offers a similar program at a baccalaureate level, and they are looking to extend that into the master's level. They can tell from the high enrollments in the program at the baccalaureate level that there will be sufficient demand for a graduate degree. Because of the undergraduate degree, they already have a depth of faculty and resources, so there is not a lot of investment needed. Athens is planning 3 concentrations within this degree, each of which is aligned with an industry recognized certification. One is people analytics, which will allow graduates to sit for the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM's credential in people analytics, and that is a well-recognized industry certification. There is a second concentration in diversity inclusion, which will allow graduates to sit for the Certified Diversity Professional certificate through the National Diversity Council. And the third concentration is talent development, which will allow graduates to sit for Certified Talent Development Professional offered by the Association for Talent Development. Graduates of this program, aside from leaving with an industry recognized credential and their master's degree, will be going into a market for, in demand for human resources professionals, and that also appears on our statewide in-demand occupations list. With that, staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. The program is approved. Dr. McGill, we're getting down there. Just hang in there. Our third program for Athens will be presented by Dr. McGill, Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
Absolutely. And to clarify on this proposal, Athens State being a a senior institution that offers junior and senior coursework would not be delivering as part of a Bachelor of Science in Nursing the RN or registered nurse coursework. They would be accepting graduates or licensed RNs into an RN to BSN program, which will have a significant component that will be offered online. And therefore, they can draw on existing coursework and strengths that the Athens State University has in healthcare management. They have a bachelor's degree and also health sciences. And given those programs, they are planning to develop 4 new courses in nursing, which will round out the RN to BSN curriculum. In order to do that, they will hire 1 new full-time faculty member who will also serve as the program director. And they have proposed a curriculum that is intended to align with the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education, CCNE, specialized accreditation requirements for RN to BSN programs. AIC has asked for an additional post-implementation requirement that would show achievement of that specialized accreditation or substantial progress toward it during the post-implementation period. The cost for this new program, because of the additional faculty, will be about $870,000, but the program is expected to generate $2.7 million in revenue through tuition. There are 10 BSN programs in the state, but we have heard from other institutions and also from employer letters that were submitted with this proposal that the demand for slots in those programs, the demand for the programs outstrips the slots available for those existing programs. Based on this rationale, staff is recommending approval for the program.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The program is approved. Lastly, we have 2 requests from the University of North Alabama to amend post-implementation conditions that will be presented by Dr. McGill. Request to amend post-implementation condition, University of North Alabama, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science in Earth Systems Sustainability.
Thank you, Chairman. So I should say before going through the rationale for recommending amendments to their conditions that both of these programs were under a 5-year post-implementation period. And the current standard is a 7-year post-implementation period. So these are still part of an old system. And so having that shorter amount of time certainly contributes to the nature of the requests. This program, a BSBA in Earth Systems Sustainability, University of North Alabama has given us a rationale for why they were not able to meet the minimum requirement for new enrollment or graduates, which had to do with a transition in leadership for the program. So there was a program director who almost immediately upon approval left the institution. And so the rebuilding of the program is now underway. They are also interested in improving the marketing and recruitment for this program, beginning with a more accessible name for the degree and attracting more students there too. And they are requesting 3 years to turn around the program. Staff is recommending approval for this request.
Okay, thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. Request to amend post-implementation condition is approved. Next, we have the University of North Alabama Master of Arts in Public History.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This program did meet the reduced requirement for new enrollments. So some of you may notice down there, 25% reduction. That's something that staff does in case there was an overprojection in the enrollments. So they did meet the reduced new enrollments, and they were one average student shy for the graduates. So this program is very close to having met its conditions. Based on that, we are recommending a 2-year extension. The proposal did include a substantial plan of how UNA was going to expand this program, expand its existing partnerships with public history centers, and obviously them being so close to meeting their numbers, we felt confident that in 2 additional years, they would be able to make the requirements. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. The chair entertains a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McGill? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. Request to amend post-implementation conditions is approved. So now we're going to move into the informational items. Items 1 through 6 are normally accepted or not accepted by the commission as a whole. And nothing against Ms. White for her not presenting, but the chair entertains a motion to approve the items collectively.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 All opposed, like sign. The information items are accepted. So just in a parting comment, I just wanted to thank all the commissioners. I know your time is valuable. I appreciate your time being here, and Dr. Purcell and his staff. They're just amazing. The data that they put together is just, it's incredible. And we really, really appreciate the hard work that y'all do. And so with that, the chair entertains a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you and see you in June.